Unaware he owned the company finalizing their $900 million agreement, they splashed wine on him in front of 300 guests, labeling him unworthy. A few guests gasped under their breath, while others exchanged amused glances, unsure whether the moment was awkward or entertaining. The crimson liquid slowly soaked into his jacket, dripping onto the spotless floor as silence briefly hovered in the air. No one realized the man they ridiculed was the backer behind the entire agreement. Phones were capturing everything. Murmurs traveled quickly. A quiet tension began to build as people sensed something unusual beneath the surface. Something changed in his expression as he stepped out without saying a word, and the consequences began before they even noticed he was gone. His calm exit carried more weight than any reaction could. Before we go any further, we'd love for you to hit that subscribe button. Your support means the world to us, and it helps us bring you even more powerful stories. Now, let's begin. You know that night where everything appeared flawless, but something dark hid beneath the surface? That was the evening Marcus Cole entered the Grand Aurora Ballroom. He wore a dark blue suit, neatly tailored, a clean, low haircut, and a simple wristwatch, nothing extravagant. The kind of appearance wealthy people often overlooked because it didn't demand attention. He preferred it that way. Let them wonder. Crystal chandeliers glowed above pristine table settings. A live quartet performed soft melodies that most people ignored. The scent of perfume blended with steak and wine. Phones were raised. Nobody wanted to miss proof they had been present. On nearly every screen, one name kept rotating: Helix Quantum Systems. Their major $900 million agreement with an unknown investor was all anyone discussed. The staff whispered about it in the corridors. The guests boasted as if they were part of it. Marcus moved through the crowd steadily, hands in his pockets, eyes observing every face. Security had already stopped him at the entrance. The guard had scanned him and asked, "Are you with catering, sir?" Marcus had simply smiled and presented his black invitation card with a silver emblem. The guard stepped aside, slightly embarrassed but still uncertain. Inside, the same judgment followed him. Two women dressed in sequins glanced at him briefly, then shifted their purses away as if avoiding contact. A man in a tuxedo stepped ahead of him at the bar and joked, "Staff first, right?" With a faint smile, Marcus quietly stepped aside and ordered water. No need to explain himself. If tonight unfolded the way he expected, explanations wouldn't be needed. At the far side of the room, cameras turned toward the stage as the host topped the microphone. His voice carried across the quiet chatter. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Helix Quantum Systems Gala." Heads turned and applause rose almost instantly. Marcus remained near a pillar, close enough to watch, far enough to go unnoticed. The host smiled broadly. "Tonight we celebrate a historic collaboration, $900 million, a deal that will transform the city, the market, perhaps even the world." You could feel the ambition in the room intensify. Then she stepped forward. Evelyn Hale, the CEO's wife, moved onto the stage in a gold gown that reflected every beam of light. Her wave gracefully, her lips painted in a flawless red. Beside her stood her husband, Charles Hale, the public face of the company, his suit perfectly tailored. Everyone focused on them. Everyone, except the man who truly owned the company behind the deal. Marcus. Whispers began before Marcus even shifted. People noticed him from the edges of their vision, nudging one another as if he'd slipped in through a staff entrance. A waiter moved past carrying a tray of wine, and one guest leaned toward her friend. "I swear that guy keeps appearing where he doesn't belong. Maybe he's staff trying to fit in." Her friend let out a quiet laugh. "Nice suit, though." Marcus paid them no attention. He moved smoothly through the crowd, shoulders loose, steps controlled. The plush carpet absorbed every sound beneath his shoes, muting his presence even more. He kept his focus on the stage from a distance, eyes calm, expression firm. Evelyn noticed him first. Her smile curved slowly, like she had just spotted someone she intended to challenge. She leaned slightly toward her husband and whispered. Charles's expression hardened. He stepped down from the stage wearing a polished smile that didn't quite reach his eyes and walked directly toward Marcus. "Sir, are you supposed to be standing here?" he asked, his tone coated in fake politeness. He reached out and lightly tapped Marcus's sleeve, as if expecting a quick reaction. Marcus remained still, his voice calm. "I'm fine here, just observing." Charles gave a short laugh. "Observing, huh?" He snapped his fingers toward a nearby server. "Get him a towel or something. Looks like he's sweating through that cheap suit." A few nearby guests turned their heads, trying not to stare too openly. One man muttered just loud enough, "Who let him into VIP?" "The service entrance is on the other side," another added quietly. Evelyn approached next, her heels clicking sharply against the floor. She grabbed a glass of red wine from a passing tray without acknowledging the server and looked Marcus up and down with clear judgment. "You know," she said smoothly, "if you needed work tonight, you could have signed up. Pretending to be a guest isn't the way to do it." Marcus remained silent. His composure unsettled them more than any reply could have. Evelyn stepped closer, slowly raising the glass. "Go ahead and take this to table 3. They've been waiting." She pushed the glass toward him. When he didn't reach for it, her smile tightened. "Seriously?" she said under her breath. "Do your job." Charles took the glass from her hand. "Allow me." He lifted it slightly, glancing at the crowd as if performing for them. One less confused worker ruining the evening. Then, without hesitation, he tipped the glass forward, spilling the wine across Marcus's suit. The liquid struck warm and sudden, spreading across the fabric and dripping down. A few drops slid along his collar. Gasps echoed across the room. "Wow, he really did that," someone whispered. Another guest quickly raised a phone, capturing everything. Evelyn let out a soft laugh. Maybe now he understands his place. Marcus lifted his hand and wiped his jaw with 2 fingers, slow, precise. He adjusted his sleeve, straightened his jacket despite the stain, and without a single word turned and walked toward the exit. The crowd parted slightly as he passed. A server whispered quietly. He walked out like he owned the place. No one took it seriously, yet something about his calm unsettled the room long after he was gone. Outside the ballroom, the hallway felt cooler, quieter, like a different world entirely. Marcus walked forward at an even pace, his fingertips brushing lightly against the damp fabric of his jacket where the wine had soaked in. He paused for just a second near a tall mirror. For a brief moment, he looked at his reflection, the stain, the calm in his eyes, the silence in his expression. No anger, just decision. He exhaled once, steady and controlled, then reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. The screen lit up, casting a soft glow across his face. He tapped a single contact. The call connected immediately. "Ready for your direction, sir." Marcus spoke quietly. "Withdraw the offer. Freeze every channel. Make the announcement immediately." A short pause. "Understood." He ended the call without hesitation. Near the elevator, a couple stood waiting, glancing toward him with curiosity. The woman leaned closer to her partner. "That's the guy they poured wine on." Marcus gave no reaction. The man shook his head slightly. People like that never expect the quiet ones to respond. Marcus pressed the elevator button and gave a small, polite nod. Nothing more. The doors slid open. As he stepped inside, he loosened his tie slightly, the tension of the room falling away with each second. The elevator doors closed softly. Inside, the silence wrapped around him. He stood still, eyes forward, as the numbers began to descend. Behind him, far above, the night was just beginning to unravel. The faint scent of wine lingered on his jacket, a small reminder of the insult he had just endured. The elevator hummed softly, the kind of music meant to soothe, but for Marcus Cole it was nothing more than background noise. His reflection stared back at him, steady eyes, calm jaw, the quiet confidence of a man in control. He swiped his phone again. A new message blinked on the screen. The legal team confirmed the action. Every channel was moving exactly as he had planned. When the elevator doors opened, the lobby buzzed with activity. Guests were scattered in small clusters, some on calls, others nursing glasses of champagne, a few leaning in conspiratorially over whispers. One woman's eyes caught the dark stain on Marcus's suit. She nudged her companion. "That's him," she murmured. Near the bar, another voice carried over the clink of glasses. "I swear something's off. You don't walk like that unless you're someone important." Marcus didn't break stride. He moved past them, unbothered, each step deliberate. The cold night air hit him as he exited, sharp enough to make him straighten his posture. The valet rushed forward instinctively, but Marcus lifted his hand, faint but commanding. "I've got it," he said without emotion. The valet hesitated and then stepped aside, uncertain. Marcus crossed the driveway under the glow of the ballroom lights spilling across the pavement. Music inside rose, then faltered, then abruptly cut off. A few heads turned toward the glass walls, puzzled. A man near the entrance muttered, "Why did it all just stop?" His date shrugged, but her eyes remained glued to the room, sensing something had shifted. Marcus reached the corner of the lot, his phone vibrating again. He glanced down. Another message. Announcement delivered. Partners notified. He locked the screen and slipped the device back into his pocket. Behind him, the hotel doors opened suddenly. A wave of commotion rushed outward, chairs scraping, voices rising in shock. Guests surged toward the entrance, trying to make sense of the disruption. Marcus didn't turn. He stepped into the streetlight, shoulders loose, face unreadable, moving with the same quiet certainty he had carried all night. The city hummed around him, lights flickering in reflection, traffic moving past in a blur. Yet the first tremors of the chaos he had set in motion were already exploding inside the ballroom. Inside, everything fractured at once. The quartet froze mid-note. Projection screens flickered, then went dark. The host's smile faltered, half-raised, almost unrecognizable. A tall man in a gray suit rushed between tables, phone pressed tightly to his ear, his face shifting from confusion to panic as he whispered urgently. The host's expression drained of color. "What's going on?" Richard Hale demanded, his voice sharp. The host swallowed hard. "The signing, it's suspended." Conversations erupted into frantic, overlapping chatter. Voices collided like waves. A woman near the stage whispered to her partner, "Suspended? But this is impossible. You don't just freeze a $900 million deal mid-gala." Evelyn tried to maintain her composure, but her hand trembled as she clutched her clutch. She leaned toward the host, voice tight. "Who gave that order?" The host's eyes flicked nervously to the crowd. "It came from the top. The directive is final." Richard's jaw clenched. "The top? I am the top." The host shook his head quickly. "Not tonight." Executives scrambled to check their phones. Alerts blinked furiously, each one worse than the last. "Every account tied to Helix Quantum is frozen," one man blurted. "Investors are pulling out. My dashboard is red," another added. Gasps rolled through the room. Phones went up, cameras clipped. Even servers froze, unsure where to move next. Near the doors, someone tapped a friend. "Look at this." The friend leaned in, eyes widened. "Wait, isn't that the man they poured wine on?" A video began to play on a phone, crystal clear. Richard tipping the glass, the red wine splashing across Marcus's suit, Evelyn smirking beside him. The caption scrolled across the screen. "They humiliated a man they thought was staff. He walked out like he owned the place." The clip spread fast, phones raised, sharing, recording, muttering. The whispers turned into stunned silence, then sharp murmurs, then full-blown panic. Evelyn grabbed Richard's arm. "Fix this, now." Richard snapped back, voice tight. "I don't even know what broke." Her voice cracked. "Someone did this on purpose." Another alert appeared on the main display screens. Bold letters flashed. "Helix Quantum Systems, contract terminated." Richard blinked, staring at the words. Terminated? No warning? No negotiation? Across the ballroom, executives froze, their devices buzzing endlessly. Partners were calling, lawyers were texting. The gala had become a war room in seconds. Evelyn's eyes darted from her husband to the screens. She realized too late that the man they humiliated, quiet, calm, unassuming, was not just anyone. He was the force behind everything. Outside, Marcus's silhouette disappeared into the night, the street lamps tracing his path. Inside, the walls of Helix Quantum trembled, not physically, but in the panic that coursed through every person still standing in that grand ballroom. And that was only the beginning. Someone from the board pushed through the crowd, his pace urgent, his face tight with panic. His polished shoes slid slightly against the marble as he stopped in front of Charles. "This is catastrophic," he said under his breath, though the tension in his voice carried far enough for others to hear. Charles straightened, trying to regain control. "Do you know who you're talking to? I didn't offend anyone." The board member leaned closer, his tone sharp. "You offended the man funding this entire deal." Evelyn's breath caught. Her fingers tightened around her clutch. "Who?" The board member glanced around, then lowered his voice. "Marcus Cole." The name landed like a shockwave. Charles's face lost color instantly. For a moment, he looked like he hadn't heard correctly. The board member continued, more firmly this time. "He owns the partner company. All of it." A ripple of disbelief spread across the ballroom. Conversation stopped mid-sentence. Glasses hovered halfway to lips. Near the wall, a server whispered to his friend, "I told you, he didn't move like staff." Another replied quietly, "They messed with the wrong person." Charles turned slowly, scanning the room as if the walls themselves had shifted against him. The confidence he carried all night was gone, replaced with something fragile. Evelyn pressed her hand to her forehead, smudging her makeup without noticing. Her voice trembled. "We poured wine on the investor." No one corrected her. No one could. The fallout hit fully now. Guests began stepping back, creating distance, not just physically, but socially. A few slipped out quietly, not wanting to be associated. Others stayed, phones raised, documenting the collapse as if it were entertainment. A group of investors huddled near the exit, whispering urgently. One shook his head and walked out without a word. At the bar, a man set his drink down untouched and muttered, "This company's done." Across the room, security staff spoke into their earpieces, unsure whether to control the situation or simply watch it unravel. Helix Quantum's future crocked in real time, visible, undeniable. And somewhere beyond the glass doors, Marcus kept walking. Morning didn't arrive gently for Charles and Evelyn. It crashed in. Before sunrise, headlines flooded every screen. News alerts stocked on top of each other. Social media feeds exploded with clips looping endlessly, the moment wine spilled across Marcus's suit from every angle. Comments tore into them without mercy. Arrogance exposed. They humiliated the wrong man. This is why power needs humility. Investors pulled out overnight. Partnerships dissolved within hours. Board members resigned quietly, sending formal emails that carried no sympathy. Helix Quantum's value dropped so fast it didn't feel real. It felt like a system error. Evelyn barely slept. She sat on the edge of the bed, still in yesterday's clothes, her hands shaking as her phone buzzed relentlessly. Her reflection in the mirror looked unfamiliar. Eyes swollen, makeup smeared, confidence gone. Charles paced the room endlessly. His hair was unkempt, his shirt wrinkled, his voice strained from too many calls. Every conversation ended the same way. "We're out. Don't contact us again. This is too risky." At one point, he stopped, staring at his phone as if willing it to change the outcome. It didn't. By noon, the silence between them grew heavy. Evelyn finally spoke, her voice low but urgent. "We have to go to him." Charles hesitated, pride fighting desperation. "If we don't, everything is gone," she added. He closed his eyes briefly, then nodded once. Their car ride felt longer than it was. The city moved as usual, traffic, noise, people going about their lives, yet for them, everything felt paused. When they reached Marcus's neighborhood, the contrast was immediate. Quiet streets, clean sidewalks, no chaos, no flashing cameras, just calm. They stepped out of the car slowly, uncertain, like people entering a place they didn't belong. Charles adjusted his jacket nervously. Evelyn wiped her face, trying to regain some composure. Then they knocked. A few seconds passed. The door opened. Marcus stood there, composed, unbothered, his expression steady, as if none of the storm had touched him. He studied them for a moment. Evelyn spoke first, her voice breaking. "We were wrong. We treated you like you didn't matter. Please, let us fix this." Charles stepped forward slightly, his confidence gone. "We've lost everything. Just give us a chance to talk." Marcus stepped aside, but didn't invite them in. The message was clear. He kept his tone calm, controlled. "You didn't lose everything today. You lost it the moment you decided a person's value depended on your comfort." They said nothing. The truth settled heavily between them. He continued, his voice steady. "You built a world where disrespect had no consequences. Now you're facing the cost." Evelyn wiped her face again, her voice barely above a whisper. "We didn't know who you were." Marcus looked at her directly. "That's the issue. You didn't care who I was." Charles swallowed hard. "Is there anything we can do?" Marcus shook his head once. "The deal is gone, the trust is gone, and my door is closed." He stepped back slightly, his final words quiet but firm enough to end everything. "Walk carefully. The world is smaller than you think." The door closed, and just like that, it was over. They stood there for a moment, unsure what to do next. No arguments left, no power left, nothing. Marcus's life moved forward. Meetings continued, new partnerships formed. His name carried weight, but now it carried something else too. Quiet respect. Not because he demanded it, but because he never needed to. As for Charles and Evelyn, their legacy didn't collapse in a single moment. It faded, piece by piece, until all that remained was a story people told as a warning. If you want more stories where power shifts in a single moment and justice lands exactly where it should, hit follow and stay locked in.